Hey guys, welcome back. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about cutting back peonies and some other perennials in the garden. So it has been raining for the last 2 weeks and it's going to rain for the next 2 weeks. And that's just the thing about gardening here in the Northwest. We get so much rain in the fall and winter time, but we just have to push through it. Just because it is raining, the garden chores do not stop. So in fact, the other day I was planting a couple of trees and I fell in the mud twice. And I looked at myself and I just smile, because honestly that's all you can do in situations like that, and just push through. So it is raining off and on, but we are going to get through this video together. So let's just jump right into it. So peonies need a period of cold to set buds for the next season. We have a lot of peonies in our garden. We have 2 in the front that are planted, and we have about 16 more to get into the ground. So I went a little bit crazy this year buying peonies, and I wasn't able to get them all in the ground just because we were doing so much infrastructure in our garden, like getting some things out. We cut down a couple of trees. So we're just really working on prepping the area. So I have a lot of peonies that still need to be planted into the ground, but I do have 2 beautiful herbaceous peonies in the front that we're going to cut back today. So if you have herbaceous peonies, it's really important to cut them back in the fall, because their leaves are prone to disease and mildew. So the cleaner you can keep your plants during the fall time, the healthier they're going to be in the springtime. If you have tree peonies, those don't really require a lot of maintenance. So with those, the buds set on the woody stems. So you really just want to cut back the old stems. And usually with tree peonies, I would recommend waiting till winter, springtime to do that. You don't want to cut those down to the ground like you will with the herbaceous peonies. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you know what variety you have before you cut them down to the ground, like we're going to be doing today to our herbaceous ones in the front. So there are other perennials that I like to cut back in the fall time, especially the ones that are prone to pests and disease. So things like hostas in our garden is a big issue with slugs. Slugs love them, so we love to keep our hostas bed nice and clean, especially in the fall time. Other perennials that I like to cut back in the fall are daylilies, bee balm, catmint. There's a huge list of ones that you can cut back in the fall. So there are perennials that you can wait and cut back in the springtime. Perennials like astilbe, asters, delphinium, black-eyed Susans, coneflowers. Coneflowers are always good to leave up if you have spent blooms, just because those seed pods are eaten by wildlife like birds. So if you have them in your garden and you don't mind the look of them right now, then you can leave those up and just cut them back in the springtime. Ours are looking a little bit spent, so I might just go ahead and cut them back now. And I don't mind cutting them back because I always have bird feeders all over our garden, so I don't feel bad taking that away. And that is one of the reasons why a lot of gardeners like to leave a lot of their perennials up, so wildlife can kind of forage on it. But again, if you have something to kind of offset that, or offset you cutting them back, then I don't think there's a problem. If you're ever unsure of which perennials to cut back in the fall or springtime, you could always call your local nursery. You can go on Google and just look up your plant and see when they recommend to cut them back. If you keep your plant tags, a lot of the times they will tell you whether you should cut them back in the fall or in springtime. I think a lot of it also has to do with preference. Some gardeners like to cut them back now. A lot of gardeners like to cut some of their perennials in the springtime. So it also depends on which zone you live in. For us, a lot of the perennials just don't look good, and that's just the honest truth. Like, a lot of gardeners can leave up the perennials and it just provides a really beautiful structure through the winter time. And it also depends on the perennial itself. But for me, I don't like that look. Everything is so slimy and just gross and wet, and I just don't like that look. So I like to cut all of the ones that I can cut back now. And it also takes away some of the pressure for me in the springtime, because we have so many projects coming up, and I'm just trying to plan kind of smart this year, just because I feel like this last year was it was a lot of learning and lessons, and but it was a growing season for sure. So again, it kind of is preference as well. And when I take you guys up front, you will see how things just look wet and kind of messy. And that's the thing about living here. Again, once the leaves drop and our perennials die back, things just don't look pretty, and they're slimy and wet and mushy and slippery. So I want to get the beds cleaned up, because again, that's just what makes me happy. And if it's a perennial that I can cut back, now I will do it, just because I want everything to look nice and clean all year round. And we are getting ready to put up our Christmas lights, so it's a lot easier to clean the beds now right before we put up our Christmas lights, just because with the cords it's kind of difficult to get in there. But make sure you guys stick around for that, because I will be posting a video of how we like to hang up our Christmas lights. But yeah, let's go up front. Let's go ahead and start. We will start raking up some leaves, and then we will cut back some of our perennials, and then take a look to see what a difference it makes cleaning your beds right now. So let's go. Okay, so here is one of the beds that we're going to be cleaning up today. As you can see, our Japanese maple has finally lost all of its leaves. And sometimes when I see just remnants of some of the leaves on here, I just come in and I rake it, or just kind of go in with my hands and just get all of the remaining leaves off. That way, when I clean up, nothing new is going to fall. But you guys can see our hostas, they're like done for this season. So I'm gonna come in here, we will cut all of these back, and then let me show you some of the peonies. Okay, so here's one of the peonies that we're gonna be cutting back today. So you can see it's not looking great, it's ready to be cut down. I'll also remove its support here. I'll remove some of our annuals too. I've already removed most of them, but some of them, what is that? It's gotta go. I'll also be cutting back some of our summer bulbs. So these were the Peruvian lilies that we planted together. So we'll get those all removed, and then we will just clean this area up. And again, I'm really excited because we're gonna be putting up our Christmas lights. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that video. And over here, we just have some other perennials to cut back. So we have the salvia here that is done and is ready to be cut down. And this is 1 year growth right here. I planted this little 1 gallon salvia. I forgot the variety, but I will throw it up on the screen. But I planted it last year and it just got massive. So thank you, Espoma. And then we have some other just annuals that we're going to be removing over here. We'll cut this salvia back as well. You can see there's a lot of new growth coming here, and I'll just leave that. I'll just cut some of these spent stalks here. I'm going to clean up that heuchera. It's not looking happy. And then we have another peony here. So let's go ahead and just get started. Okay, so when you're cutting back herbaceous peonies and any other perennials, you just want to make sure that you're cutting them down all the way to the ground. I'm just going to move out my peony cage right here. Okay, just like that. So I just removed all of the dead leaves and the branches, and I make sure this area is nice and clean. And I just store my cage for the year, my peony cage. But typically once they start blooming, I just pop this right back in like that, and that's it. Okay, so GMs are an evergreen for us, so I'm just gonna cut back all of these dead leaves around it and just tidy it up a little bit. So here's something interesting that just happened. So when I was raking some of the leaves, I noticed that some of the heuchera started to lift, and look, the underside is completely gone. How crazy is that? I had no idea this was happening, and I think it's weevil damage. I'm going to look a little bit more into it, but about 4 of them had this. I've never had that happen to me before. Let me know in the comments section if you guys have ever experienced this with any of your heucheras. I think it's the only thing that makes sense because they didn't eat the tops, but they got down to the roots. I'm so sad. Luckily, I do have some more in containers that I can just replant, but still, that's so sad. All right, doesn't that look so much better? So I always like to blow at the end, like you guys saw. That really just helps get like any of the extra leaves out, and it helps clean right around your house. So it's always nice to have a blower. I will come in and just kind of weed all of these little grasses growing everywhere, and just probably do like a nice thin layer of mulch. But it looks so much better. Obviously, now that we've lost some of those heucheras, I do have some areas that I can add more things to in the garden. But we got the peonies all nice and cut. And now let's look at the other bed. Okay, so now this bed looks a lot better. We removed all of the leaves, and now you can actually see how everything is looking. We know that we have a bunch of hostas right underneath, but we can kind of see the areas in the garden where we can add more winter interest. And actually, this bed is going to be totally transformed next spring. We're going to be taking out all of the sedums over here. I've talked to you guys before about removing this clematis, so I think we're going to do that this spring. We're not sure yet. We're just kind of playing around with different plant ideas. But I think it's just so nice to have everything tidy like this because it allows you to see the areas in your garden where you can add more winter interest. And now we will be cutting the grass next and just edging the bed ever so slightly. That way it's just going to be nice and neat because we do outline this whole area with lights. And when we do our Christmas light video, you guys will see that. But it is starting to rain again. So we will just wait to cut the grass until tomorrow morning. But I think it just made such a big difference to get this done today. Okay, so I also have all of these potted peonies that we're going to be planting this springtime, but I will just cut them down like we did with the ones in the front, and we will just put them on our deck so they stay nice and protected over the winter time. I also have these over here, so you can tell I really do need to come here and just cut everything down and just get them onto the deck. That way they're protected and not getting too wet this fall and winter time. All right, guys, well, that's it for today's project. And I just want to say it feels so good to get out here and get these things done. It's just like instant gratification in the garden. And you know, right now it's also a really good time to come outside and kind of see where in your garden could you add more winter interest. It's always a good idea to get out into your garden every season. So every summer, every fall, every winter, and every spring. That way you can see, okay, where can I add more interest depending on that season? So for me, it's always easier to have everything kind of cleaned out, all of the leaves raked up. That way I can really see, okay, where can I add more winter interest in my garden right now? So anyways, I'm just so happy I got it done, and that means I can get all of my Christmas decorations out. I'm so excited for the holidays this year, so we will have some videos up as well for some Christmas decorations and containers. But yeah, I am just so happy I got this done today, even though it was raining most of the time, but we got it done, we pushed through, and I feel like sometimes that's what gardening is all about, is just pushing through and getting it done. So anyways, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you in our next video. Bye.